This is Tracy Hales Vass, right on Four Corners on KSJE 90.9 FM in Farmington, New Mexico. Today I'm talking to Karen Glinsky about her young adult novel, Badge of Honor, and her other writing.
Hi there, Tracy.
I really enjoyed reading Badge of Honor.
Oh, that just is so thrilling. Thank you so much.
Yes, now this is you call it young adult fiction?
Well, actually, it kind of falls in the older middle grade to younger young adult. Emerson is just almost 12 years old, which puts him right on that teetering point between middle grade and younger young adult.
Right.
And the challenges that he goes through and what he has to face and what he has to overcome pretty much would put him experientially into the younger middle adult group.
I think so too.
If that makes sense.
It does, because he goes through internal challenges, trying to walk in the beauty way, as he says.
Yes, he does. And on a couple internal levels, he is coping, trying to learn, and really trying to embrace some of the traditions and the beliefs that his grandpa Charlie is trying to teach him. Emerson did not grow up in a Navajo culture. His mother's Navajo, but Emerson grew up a city kid. He's an Air Force brat. And this summer that he's spending with his grandpa on the Navajo reservation has just been like walking into a foreign country for him.
Yes.
And so much of what he's learning, much of what he's seeing and experiencing, it is just like he may as well have gone to China for all he knows. And so there is a lot internally going on with him, as well as trying to overcome certain bigger challenges, as in my story. Does he keep the stolen jewelry, or does he do the right thing and turn it in? Does he lie to his grandfather about his involvement, the Ring of Thieves, or does he keep quiet, and so his grandfather never finds out? Things to that nature.
And he has his little companion, Lucky the Dachshund, to help him out.
Yes, Now, Lucky is a feisty little dog. When Emerson first comes to sheep camp, he is a misfit. He doesn't belong, and he hates it. He adopts Lucky in the first book, and what could be better for a misfit boy at sheep camp than a misfit dog? And what could be more misfit than a small dog with short legs out on the mesa, where there are so many natural enemies that she herself has got to overcome trepidation in herself, and she has a growth arc as well. And she is steadfastly devoted to her boy, Emerson.
The first one, what's the title of that one?
Oh, that one is Stranded at Sheep Camp.
Okay.
And that is the first of the 3 books.
Good. That's what I was going to ask, if Emerson was in all 3 of your books.
Yes.
And Danger
and Lucky, and Grandpa Charlie.
Oh, good. And Danger at the Rodeo is the second one?
It is, yes.
Great. So by the time we get to Badge of Honor, we find that Emerson is more acclimated to the sheep camp and is learning to herd the sheep and survive in cooking over a fire.
He's made a transition, and at the end of the book, he comes to the startling realization that he really likes it there, and now he's not sure he wants to leave.
That's right.
But it has been a little difficult for him to make this transition into a sheep herder, into someone who wants to embrace his Navajo heritage and enjoys testing himself and is sometimes surprised at what he can accomplish.
And he does accomplish quite a bit.
and he's tested in Badge of Honor
Mm-hmm.
to go beyond his envelope, for physical stamina,
Right.
learning to getting his grandfather to Shiprock, to the ER,
Right.
when he himself has only driven a truck around the mesa. I mean, that was a big accomplishment for him,
Yes, and he rose
and
to it quite well.
he did.
So, badge of honor refers to the medal that you have in the title, the Navajo Code Talkers.
Yes, and when Emerson finds the sack of stolen jewelry and the military medals, at the bottom of the sack is a gold Code Talker medal, and that kind of becomes the beacon for Emerson through the rest of the story. He's fascinated by it, and it's beautiful, and basically he would like to keep it for himself if he could, but he doesn't. And he slowly learns more and more about the sacrifice that the Navajos made during the Second World War, the original 29 who were selected to formulate the code that the Japanese would not be able to decipher. And I think that the most wonderful part about this book is towards the end, where Emerson actually gets to meet the old soldier, the Code Talker, whose medal Emerson rescued. And I think by him experiencing the old soldier's story about the guts and the blood and the horror of a war, it really reinforces the sacrifice, the commitment, the patriotism that our soldiers go through. And his people, as he's come to embrace the Navajo, he is one of them. And that creates such a sense of pride in him that he wishes, had he been a soldier back in those days, a grown man, he would want to be a Code Talker too.
That's right. Yeah, so you were born into a military family.
Yes, yes, I was. The oldest of 6 kids. My
Oh,
dad was in the Army. I was actually born in Yokohama, Japan.
oh my. That's a long way
So,
from New Mexico.
well, it is. It is. So I decided to place Emerson with a military family background because that's something I'm very familiar with. You
Yes.
know, the challenge of moving around, trying to make friends when you don't know if you ever will, things to that nature, and how you adapt to change.
What drew you to writing about the Navajo culture?
Oh, okay. So let me back up just a little bit and say that when we moved here to Albuquerque, when my dad was stationed at Sandia Base, now Kirtland Air Force Base East,
Mm-hmm.
um, I was already in love with archaeology and different cultures, and when we hit the Southwest, now I had so many different Native American cultures to try to learn about and to discover. But how this came about, that I set my series of stories on the Navajo Reservation, is that years ago I was a hot air balloon pilot, and my favorite rally was at Gallup, New Mexico, the Red Rock Rally, the beginning of December. And one night we were sitting around, talking with some friends and some Navajos that had come out and helped crew with us, and we're just all sitting around talking. And I shared that I had this story in mind for a boy and his dog, and I needed to put it someplace where he would be so isolated that he had to learn to depend upon himself. And one of the young men that was sitting there with us, he said, "Oh, that would be sheep camp." And I said, "Camp?" And so he talked a little bit, and a couple other people nodded their heads wisely. Many Navajo kids, those that grow up on the reservation, spend some amount of time herding sheep for their parents or their grandparents. And so sheep camp is basically isolated.
Mm-hmm.
You're out on the mesa alone. You have no phone, you have no computer, you have no friends out there, you have nothing. It is really, truly a very different situation for a kid to be in, or an adult too, for that matter, when they're used to the hustle and bustle of a modern world around them.
Yes.
So that's the long version of how I picked the Navajo reservation.
Perfect. And Emerson, this almost 12-year-old, is without his computer games or his cell phone or anything like that. So that's definitely new culture for him.
I have read a couple books that allude to sheep camp. I tried to do as much research as possible online, and made a trip up to Gallup. Of course, I'd been in Gallup.
Mm-hmm.
I made a trip up to Sheep Rock, and I did some wandering around so I could learn the lay of the land. Mm-hmm. And so when I was creating my story, I could envision the way the mesa should look. Mm-hmm. And going into Ship Rock, what you would see, what you'd smell, what you'd hear.
You wrote it so well that it was easy to be in the setting with all the senses, sight, smells, the rugged terrain, the sheep.
Thank you.
And the Navajo language that you used in the book, and then you have a glossary. I liked that. And that Emerson was himself learning Navajo.
Yes.
And the people are so very real. Grandpa Charlie, and is it Jolene at the post office?
Oh, yes. She runs the trading post, Bobcat Ridge. It's not a real trading post, but that's okay.
That's okay. It could be.
Mm-hmm.
It
could be.
Yes, she's a great character also. And the policewoman, I love that. Everywhere they go, there's coffee offered.
Yes. That's almost a tradition.
Mm-hmm.
When people go visiting, always they will put on a pot of coffee or heat up what's left from the morning. But it's a way of making the people coming to visit you comfortable.
Right. So now that you've completed Emerson's trip to the sheep camp, what happens next? What are you writing now?
Well, let me just say before I leave Emerson that I am contemplating bringing him back when he's about 4 years older, when he has a different set of challenges at a different age level. I'm contemplating and mulling that around, but that'll be in the future a little bit once I'm done with the story I'm writing right now.
Okay.
And because I love history, I'm enthralled with history in different cultures, and being a military brat myself, anything having to do with wars and soldiers is almost like a part of me. It's like part of all of us, who grow up in a military culture. And so my book I'm writing now takes place in Holland in the fall of 1944 under the German occupation.
Oh.
And I have 3 protagonists, a girl and 2 boys. They grew up as childhood friends, and they're 13, 14, 15, right around in that age group. And they come from different points of view. Like, for example, one of them, his parents belonged to the Dutch Nazi Party, although he hates the Nazis and wants nothing to do with them. One of them, her father was just arrested at the beginning of the story for having a forbidden and prohibited radio And so he's been arrested. And then the third one is involved with his uncle who hides Jewish children. So all three of the kids, at the beginning of the story, they're not totally aware of what the other one's families are doing, but when they do come together, they kind of form their own little young teenage resistance group, and they become involved in carrying messages for the Dutch underground and doing some other things, helping kids escape. So that's what I'm working on now.
Oh, that sounds exciting. And that's another upper middle grade?
Yeah, well, yes, I'd say upper middle grade, younger young adult.
Okay.
I kind of like this age group.
What made you choose to write for this age group?
You know, that's a wonderful question, and gee, I wish I had a wonderful answer. I think for some reason it's just kind of easy for me, and maybe because at this point in my own growing up, I remember quite a bit about how I was and what I thought and what I liked and what was exciting. And then I have a unique advantage of watching my younger sisters and brothers go through this age as well. I don't know. I think that there's something not yet jaded. You know, once we become teenagers, oh my goodness,
it's true.
You know, we go through so much, you know, and we haven't yet reached that stage. So I think that's why I like this age group.
And it's not, it's got morals to it, you know, Emerson seeking to walk in beauty, but yet it's not over the top. And I appreciate that Emerson's a very real boy who goes through the struggles of, if I had money, I could do this. And he definitely considers that. So I appreciate that he's not, that he's very real.
I tried to make it his personal seesaw back and forth about knowing the right thing to do, but oh my gosh, he really wants to do something else instead.
Right.
But then when he discovers that maybe a life of crime, albeit petty crime, isn't all he thinks it can be cracked up to be.
That's right.
You know, I think that's a pivotal point in my book.
And he even, I don't want to spoil this, but there was a point where he felt like he was betraying someone his age, a little older, that could have been a friend, and he was torn about that.
Yes, that was he had betrayed Gordo's trust.
Right.
And what Grandpa Charlie says, that as odd as it may seem, that reporting Gordo to the police may help Gordo learn to walk in beauty as well.
Right.
And something that Emerson would not have thought about.
Right.
Would not have.
Karen, this would be a good time for you to read a few pages for us.
Okay. Emerson is a little like me and a little like my brother Bruce.
Oh.
We were the two role models for Emerson. You know, I factor in because, my gracious, I have made so many bad decisions in my lifetime, and I bet I'm going to make a whole bunch more.
That's right.
In my future. And my brother approaches anything, a good decision or a bad decision, with a fair amount of humor. And, oh well, we'll figure our way out of this one too.
That's great.
So anyway, what I would like to read, and this is kind of pivotal, and what has happened here, Emerson hasn't yet learned the names of two of the ringleaders, you know, of this jewelry gang.
Right.
And he just nicknames them because of things they look like.
Right.
Long hair and rat face.
Right.
Gordo he already knows. But anyway, so what I'm going to read, what happens right before this, is Longhair, Ratface, and Gordo have taken Emerson to a buy where they fence the stolen jewelry. After
Great.
that, they bring Emerson back and drop him off at the hospital parking lot, and the black Challenger carrying the kids, it heads off, and Emerson decides to leave his backpack with the stolen jewelry he's been carrying around in his Grandpa Charlie's truck, and he's fumbling in the backpack for his keys when Lucky starts to bark, and she alerts him that the black Challenger is coming back. And so Emerson stood rooted in place, watching the Challenger creep closer and closer. His body tensed all over again as Ratface eased the car to a stop. "Hey, kid," Longhair called out. "That your truck?" Emerson fought to keep his voice steady. "Yeah, my grandfather's. Why?" "Just where it's parked, that's all. You won't need keys to open it." Emerson stared at Longhair a moment, then tugged Lucky around to the truck's passenger door. It stood open a few inches. Puzzled, he pulled the door all the way and peered inside. The seat was pulled forward and tools from the toolbox lay scattered on the floor. The contents of the glove box had been tossed onto the seat. The visors were pulled down. Even the ashtray had been dumped. Emerson's stomach churned, and he could taste the salty sweat from his face. "They broke in last night. If I'd left the jewelry here, they'd have gotten it." He remembered Longhair and Ratface talking about people who steal from them. They'd be waiting for whoever owned the truck to show up and get even. It felt like time around him stood still, as if he were moving in slow motion. Slowly, he set Lucky on the seat and pushed it back in place. Then he got in and turned the key in the ignition. Nothing. The battery was dead. He gripped the steering wheel and thought. The door was open all night, so the dome light stayed on. That's what drained the battery. Emerson scooped Lucky under one arm and got out, totally aware that Longhair, Ratface, and Gordo sat in the black car watching him. He heard Gordo say, "So what if it's his? That don't prove anything." His heart pounding, Emerson set Lucky on the ground. "Just keep calm. Act natural." "You knew about this?" Emerson asked Longhair. Longhair shrugged. "Noticed it last night. Didn't know it was yours." Emerson glanced back at the truck. "You think you could jump the battery?" He was amazed his voice wasn't shaking. He sounded a lot braver than he felt. "Nah," Longhair said. "No cables." Emerson was quiet for a moment. "I'll check the hospital. Maybe someone has a set there." He tugged on Lucky's leash, pulling her past the Challenger toward the entrance. She looked behind her and growled at the car, then rushed ahead, forcing Emerson to quicken his pace. He heard the Challenger still idling in place behind him. It hadn't moved. So I think, Tracy, that kind of tells you what goes on, how Emerson is tossing back and forth.
Yes.
A couple bad decisions.
That's right. That's right. Was a good passage to read because of that. It sums up a lot, but it also shows him trying to decide what to do next.
Yes.
You know, I was really proud of him in that scene because he didn't cower down. He goes, "You knew about this?"
Yeah, he's one of these kids like all of us, at points in our lives where maybe we're braver than we think we are.
Right.
And sometimes it surprises us.
Is Lucky modeled after some of your little friends?
Oh, yes. my first model for Lucky was my little dog Chloe, of Dachshund, of course. And actually, I thought I would write a little picture book story about Chloe, and I named it Little Miss Ears Fall Back because her ears fell back. You know, I watch my dogs. I watch how they look, how they sniff the air, how their ears flop up and down, how they're startled, how they spring after something, how they dig, you know, and just one of the greatest joys in my life when I'm writing or I'm home at my desk and looking out the window, if my little ones are outside, I watch them play. And it helps me clear my mind when I have writer's block, and it also creates a picture for when I'm writing a scene with Lucky in it, how I can have her move and how I can have her appear to think.
Right.
And anyone who's had a dog or a cat or any pet, we know our
That's
pets
right.
think.
Lucky even has a couple of her own chapters. And it's very real. She's a very real character.
Thank you. I love her in this. In each of my books, she kind of provides information that the reader would not know because everything is written really through Emerson's eyes, and if he doesn't know it, the reader doesn't know it.
Right.
So Lucky kind of bridges some gaps.
And readers can find the books where?
They can always buy them on Amazon. Here in Albuquerque, they're being sold at Treasure House Books and Gifts in Old Town, at Bookworks on North Rio Grande, and at Organic Bookstore in Nob Hill, and Page One up in the Northeast Heights. I just want to brag just a little bit,
please,
because Badge of Honor won an award in the Eric Hoffer Book Contest. So now my Badge of Honor books now have a little seal on that.
Oh, congratulations.
And thank you. And then this coming November, I've been asked to come and speak and do a book signing at Eastern New Mexico University for Native American Heritage Month.
Oh, that's great.
And so I'm very excited about that and can hardly wait to be there and present my books there.
Do you have a web presence?
Oh, I do. I do have a website.
Okay.
But I believe if you just Google Karen Glinsky, then pretty soon you will find the website. I'm on Facebook as well and Twitter.
Great. I Googled you by your name and found it. So that's Glinski. Glinsky.
That's it, yes.
Well, it's been a pleasure to talk to you and to read all about Emerson. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very, very much.
And that was Karen Glinsky, the author of Stranded at Sheep Camp, Danger at the Rodeo, and Badge of Honor. This is Tracy Hales Vass, right on Four Corners, on KSJE 90.9 FM in Farmington, New Mexico.